Welcome to my home cafe. Today we're going to make a latte. This is the second video I make using the Breville Infuser. The first one was when I bought it a few years ago. Now it's 4 years later and counting. So the first step is you're going to make sure that you have all your ingredients ready and within hand reach, and that way it becomes a ritual rather than a task. And then you're going to go ahead and measure your beans out. Your desired dosage actually depends on the grind size, and so for this specific grind I'm going to be using 18 grams. Sometimes I use slightly less than that because I'd grind slightly coarser, and that is what gives me the right pressure in the machine, so I'd go 17.8 or 17.9 grams because I'd always like to keep a little gap between my porta-filter and the showerhead while brewing. That's something I'll explain in a bit. I use the Breville Infuser and the Baratza Seta 30 for my grinder, which is a non-retention grinder. Now there are more advanced grinders than this one that have stepless adjustments, but I don't use them because I don't need that much adjustment. This grinder is more than enough. Then I'm going to go ahead and rinse my porta-filter so that I have it warm before my shot, as well as make sure that it is clean. So I always clean before and after. In industrial settings, I truly don't recommend that you be wasting this much water. This is personal use. In industrial settings, you just want to turn on your machine and make sure the machine itself just conducts heat, and you can wipe down your porta-filters or maybe clean it the first time off. The tamper should also be clean so that there are no residues of coffee from the previous tamp, so that you don't have a contaminated shot. The same thing for the grinder. I actually make sure that every time I change the beans that I grind about 4 grams or so of coffee through. So this is the same bean I used in the shot before, so I didn't need to do that to make sure that my grinder is not contaminated with other beans. Now the next step is going to be to make sure that I distribute this amount of ground coffee equally so that there is no channeling. You see I lost a little bit of beans there. That's why I usually add 0.1 gram to my grind. And whenever you can, you shouldn't waste coffee, and you shouldn't add grams if you're sure that you're not going to be wasting some. But I want to have a perfect shot every time. There are other distribution methods, such as distributing with your hand, or even using advanced techniques such as a distributor, or there are other techniques that we're not going to discuss here. Anyways, the tamping is going to be classically people give this kind of hinge with the elbow flared out so that they give a strong tamp and make sure that it's perpendicular. In my experience, it never gives me a very perpendicular tamp, and there's a chance that it's going to tilt. So I actually put my fingers around the rim of the porta-filter, and that guides me to make sure that my tamp goes down perfectly leveled. And you want a perfectly leveled puck in your porta-filter. Notice how I have some grinds, some particulate of the grinds in there. I'm not gonna neither swipe it around so that I don't disturb my tamped bed. That grind is just gonna float in the water. If I tamp it or I swirl around with my tamper so that it kind of like flushes, it might look nice, but it actually disturbs my bed. So once my tamp is done, I am done, I'm out. And that is illustrated there, so that there's a gap between my porta-filter, and that's why the gap between my porta-filter and my tamp bed, or the puck of the beans, is important. Now when I lock, the next step is to lock the porta-filter in place. I just lock it. Don't fasten it too tight, because by doing so you're going to actually bring the puck closer to the porta-filter, and you can have a pressure issue, or actually promote the disturbance of your bed and channeling. I'm going to put my scale next up and my preheated cup, and I'm going to tear it down while keeping my eye on the pressure gauge, which is a wonderful feature on the Breville Infuser. And I'm going to go ahead and press both my brewing button and my timer button at the same time. So here we're going for a double shot, and you're going to keep your eye on the timer and the scale. So we're going to assume that 1 milligram is 1 ml because that's what water to a milligram is. Now this is coffee, but the closest thing we can come to is water. And we're going to be aiming for about 28 seconds plus minus a few, and about 34 mLs plus minus a few. So here I stopped it at 36.3 mLs. I would have really hoped that it was less than that, but that's still a perfect shot in just under 30 seconds. Up next, you'll be turning on your steam wand because this is a single boiler machine, so it takes some time. And you can prepare your milk at this time, making sure that your milk is just under the spout with a little bit of gap so that you give yourself enough space to steam the milk in the pitcher. I usually direct my milk to that hole in the sink below or in the drip tray so that it doesn't splash everywhere as it's coming up to temperature. It's actually also producing steam and sometimes dripping water then producing steam. And then I turn it off when the light indicator is steady. It blinks initially, then it's steady. When it's steady, you turn off, then quickly put your milk pitcher in and then turn it on while the wand is immersed in the milk. Not too deep, just the tip slightly immersed, and the idea is not to splash steam and milk everywhere. And then you pull down your pitcher until you hear a hissing sound off the center at an angle directed towards your wall, and you do not move your pitcher or your steam wand. You just move it up. You don't move it around, I mean. You just move the pitcher itself up or down only. When you start, you move it down slowly to hear a hissing sound until room temperature, and then that is because the hissing sound is because of the spreading you're doing to the milk, and that's infusing air. Then you bring it up and you let it swirl until you cannot touch it anymore, and that's about usually between 65 to 75 degrees or so, and that's the desired temperature. It shouldn't be too hot, or you can go slightly more if that's your preferred drink. Then immediately after, you turn it off, you keep your pitcher inside for a couple seconds, you take it out immediately after, you rinse your wand with a wet towel, and then you actually turn it on again so that it sprays a little bit more steam to make sure no milk is stuck in the wand. After that, I usually give a couple gentle taps and swirl just to make sure no bubbles are visible and the consistency of the milk is silky smooth and it looks like wet paint. And then you simply compose your latte or cappuccino and have a go at latte-art when you can. That's not at all close to my to the best latte-art I would like to have done, but that's what we have today. Then before you walk away from your station, please clean up your drip tray. You want it to be clean so that no smells gather there. Stale water is not a good idea. You want to keep your machine fresh, and then you immediately empty your puck because you don't want pre-ground coffee to be in there. You don't want to contaminate your next drink. Then you rinse and clean again before each use. Again, in industrial scales, you may want to wipe the cleaning with water. It could be at the beginning, at the end of each shift or each use, because you'll be doing multiple shots. You shouldn't be wasting water. And then finally, you want to enjoy that coffee with your loved ones. Thank you for watching.